The sun beat down relentlessly on the tents of Israel, casting long shadows and creating an almost unbearable heat. It bleached the fabric white, making the tents appear ghostly against the stark desert landscape. The sun's rays baked the sand until it shimmered like a sea of molten gold, a deceptive beauty in a land of hardship. The air hummed with heat, creating mirages that danced on the horizon, illusions of water that only deepened the traveler's thirst. This was the wilderness of Zin, a place where survival was a daily struggle against the elements, a harsh and unforgiving land, where the sun showed no mercy and the nights brought little relief. The Israelites had wandered these desolate plains for 40 long years, their journey marked by trials and tribulations. Led by Moses, their prophet and leader, they journeyed towards a promised land, a place of hope and abundance, a land flowing with milk and honey, a stark contrast to the barren wilderness they now traversed. But the journey was long and arduous, testing their faith and endurance at every turn. The people were weary, their bodies and spirits worn down by the relentless march and the harsh conditions. Miriam, the sister of Moses and a revered figure among the Israelites, had recently passed away. Her death cast a shadow over the camp, a palpable sense of loss that weighed heavily on the hearts of the people. She was a woman of great faith, a guiding light in their darkest hours, and her absence was deeply felt. A beacon of hope in their long journey, her strength and faith had inspired many. Her loss left a void, a gap in their community that seemed impossible to fill. A sense of uncertainty hung in the air, mingling with the dust and heat as the people grappled with their grief and their future. The Israelites depended on God's provision, trusting in His promise to lead them to a better place. He had brought them this far, performing miracles such as parting the Red Sea to save them from their enemies. He had sent manna from heaven to sustain them, providing food in the most unlikely of places. But here in the parched heart of the wilderness, their faith was tested like never before. The scarcity of water, the very essence of life, was a constant reminder of their vulnerability. Water was scarce, the wells were dry, the streams had vanished, and the people thirsted desperately. The lack of water bred fear among the people. Fear turned to anger, a dangerous emotion in such a fragile community, and anger, like a desert wind, swept through the camp, igniting tensions and causing unrest. The Israelites, desperate and disillusioned, began to murmur against Moses and their situation. Their whispers, carried on the hot breeze, spoke of doubt and despair, questioning the very journey they had embarked upon. They had followed Moses into this wilderness, believing in his vision and leadership, but now, in the face of such dire circumstances, they questioned everything: their faith, their leader, and their future. The camp was filled with uncertainty, a palpable tension that threatened to unravel the fragile unity of the people. They stood at a crossroads, their faith and resilience tested to the limit as they awaited a sign, a miracle, to guide them forward. The murmurings grew louder. What started as whispers of discontent soon transformed into loud accusations. The air was thick with tension, and the desert seemed to echo their grievances. The Israelites gathered before Moses and Aaron, their leaders. The crowd was restless, their voices a cacophony of complaints and demands. Their faces were etched with frustration and fear. The harsh conditions of the desert had taken their toll, and the people were desperate for relief. They shook their fists at the sky as if demanding answers from the heavens. Their cries were filled with anguish and a sense of betrayal. They cried out against their leaders, their voices rising in a chorus of discontent. The trust they once had in Moses and Aaron seemed to be eroding with each passing day. Israelite rebel, as S3, why have you brought us out of Egypt to die of thirst in this desolate place? The question hung in the air, a stark reminder of their dire situation. Their words stung Moses and Aaron. The pain was evident in their eyes, as they faced the harsh reality of their people's suffering. They had led the people with love and compassion, guiding them through countless trials and tribulations. Their journey had been long and arduous, but their faith had never wavered. They had shared their burdens, feeling the weight of each hardship and challenge. They had stood by their people, offering support and guidance. They had interceded on their behalf before God, pleading for mercy and provision. Their prayers were a testament to their unwavering faith and dedication. But now, faced with the people's anger, they felt a profound sense of isolation. The very people they had devoted their lives to were now turning against them. Their leadership was being questioned. Doubts and suspicions were cast upon them, and the weight of responsibility felt heavier than ever. Their faith was being tested. In the face of adversity, they had to dig deep within themselves to find the strength to carry on. Moses and Aaron listened to the people's cries. Each plea and lamentation pierced their hearts, reminding them of the immense responsibility they bore. They felt the weight of their despair. They understood their fear, for they too had faced moments of doubt and uncertainty. But they refused to be swayed by their anger. Their resolve was unshaken, and they stood firm in their commitment to lead their people. They knew that God would provide. He had always provided, even in the most dire of circumstances. Their faith was their anchor, keeping them grounded amidst the storm. They just needed to seek His guidance. In moments of doubt, they turned to prayer, seeking wisdom and direction from the Almighty. Moses and Aaron turned away from the angry mob. They knew that engaging in confrontation would only escalate the situation. They made their way to the entrance of the tabernacle. This was their sanctuary, a place of refuge and solace, the place where God's presence resided. Here they could find the peace and clarity they so desperately needed. It was here, in the quiet solitude of the tabernacle, that they sought solace and guidance. In the presence of God, they found the strength to continue their journey, knowing that they were never truly alone. Inside the tabernacle, Moses and Aaron prostrated themselves before the Ark of the Covenant. This sacred chest, overlaid with gold, represented God's presence among them. It was a symbol of His covenant with Israel, a promise of His faithfulness. With heavy hearts, they poured out their anguish to God. Moses as S1, "Oh Lord, the people are about to stone us. What are we to do?" The air crackled with divine energy. The Lord in His infinite mercy responded to their plea. His voice, booming yet comforting, reverberated through the tabernacle. "Take the rod and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aaron, and speak to the rock before their eyes. It will yield its water. Thus you shall bring water out of the rock for them, and you shall give drink to the congregation and their livestock." God's instructions were clear. He would provide for His people, but this provision came with a specific command. Moses was to speak to the rock. He was to demonstrate his faith in God's power. He was to show the people that even in the harshest desert, God could bring forth life. Moses and Aaron emerged from the tabernacle. Their faces, though etched with concern, now held a glimmer of hope. They had just received a divine message, a promise that would change the course of their journey. They had heard from God. He had promised to provide. The barren desert, which had been a source of despair, now seemed to hold a promise of life. They gathered the Israelites before a towering rock. The people, weary from their travels and parched from the relentless heat, looked on with a mixture of skepticism and hope. Its surface was baked hard by the relentless sun. The rock stood as a silent testament to the harshness of the desert, its cracks and rugged texture telling a story of enduring hardship. Moses raised his arms, silencing the restless crowd. His presence commanded respect, and the people fell silent, their eyes fixed on him. Moses as S1, "Listen, you rebels." His voice carried a weight of authority, but also a hint of frustration. "Must we bring you water out of this rock?" Anger surged within him. The constant complaints and lack of faith from the people had worn him down. Anger at their lack of faith. Despite all the miracles they had witnessed, their faith wavered at every challenge. Anger at their constant complaining. Every step of the journey had been marked by their grumbling and dissatisfaction. He raised the rod, the symbol of God's power, high above his head. This rod had parted the Red Sea, brought plagues upon Egypt, and now it was to bring water from a rock. But instead of speaking to the rock as God had commanded, he struck it. His frustration got the better of him. He struck it not once, but twice. Each strike echoed his inner turmoil and disobedience. A hush fell over the crowd. They had expected a miracle, but the manner in which it came left them in stunned silence. They watched in stunned silence as water gushed forth from the rock. The impossible had happened before their eyes. It cascaded down its sides, forming a cool, clear stream. The water was a lifeline in the harsh desert, a symbol of hope and survival. The people cheered, rushing forward to quench their thirst. Their joy was palpable, a stark contrast to the tension that had filled the air moments before. The parched earth drank deeply. The dry, cracked ground soaked up the water eagerly, a sight that brought relief to all who witnessed it. The animals lapped up the life-giving water. Even the creatures of the desert rejoiced in the sudden abundance. But amidst the celebration, Moses felt a chill run down his spine. He had disobeyed God. The weight of his actions began to settle in. He had acted in anger. His moment of weakness had led him to defy a direct command from God, and he knew, with a sinking heart, that there would be consequences. The joy of the people was overshadowed by the realization of his disobedience. The path ahead, once filled with hope, now seemed uncertain and fraught with divine judgment.